Ian Knapp, MKUltra is an experimental artist from New Jersey. Growing up, music has always been a big part of his life. He played cello and guitar early on. He says his parents played a lot of classic rock, and eventually he would go on to dive deeply into metal music. Outside of metal, he also cites David Bowie, Death Grips, Kanye West, and Jay Dilla as influences. He says he never felt like he fit in, and in school was bullied for liking different things.
You know, I didn't fit in for a while, and I think as a kid I didn't really, like, I kind of just like enjoyed shit, and then I would get ripped on for like enjoying certain things. Like I was the only kid that was like into like metal and stuff like that, and I would always wear like, I remember I always wear like an Anthrax t-shirt, so kids started calling me Anthrax because I like that band, but that band's hella good. But like yeah, but like, you know, shit like that. I always just like kind of just rep the stuff that I was enjoying, but then I would always just kind of like, you know, it just wasn't, it didn't fit in sort of like any sort of narrative. So I always kind of just felt like outside of shit. Around
the age of 17, he started to experiment with psychedelics, something he did once or twice a year, until one time he decided to trip 5 or 6 times in a span of maybe a couple months.
How do you think psychedelics kind of change your perspective on life overall?
I don't know, because there are, I don't know, I've had a lot of like different experiences.
Yeah.
I guess I could go through one that was like it was the inspiration for Green Guy. So this was when it was during a period where I was doing like a lot of psychedelics. Usually I only do them like maybe once every like 3 months. Or like once every like 6 months or something like that. Like I would only do them once in a while, and whenever I would do them I would just do a lot, and I would kind of make it a special thing. I didn't like to like, at first I didn't like to do it like maybe like 2 grams. I didn't like to do it during a party. I kind of like I don't know. I like to do it for that, like that purpose.
Yeah.
And I remember, but there was one period where I was really experimenting and I was doing like DMT. I had like 6 trips in maybe like 3 months in like the course of a summer. And I had one trip where I did like 5 grams of shrooms. And I was like sitting in my room and I was meditating, and all of a sudden I see all this like really crazy, surreal, like fucked up imagery. Like it was just like the human anatomy and just like the body and like the meat skin, like almost like a diagram. And it was like I was in like a graveyard, and there was like a cartoon dog with like teeth for eyes. And I was like, but it was at a time where I was actually kind of like hella happy, or like it wasn't like, I go through periods where I'm a lot more anxious or like shit than others type of shit. It's like, you know, ups and downs. But I didn't think that there was anything that I was like hiding. So it was like, yeah, I was having a bad trip, but I was like, why am I having a bad trip? It almost like wasn't like I was almost like frightened by it. I was almost more confused and just like curious. And then I remember I like look up and I see like an alien that's like, it's like a bowling pin with fucking strings, but the strings are floating, and on the end are just like almost like eyeballs and shit. And then all of a sudden it's like then I had complete ego death, where it started like taking apart like everything that like I ever knew. Like it started making me feel like I would have like multiple different emotions at the same time. So I'd be like laughing, but also angry, and also scared, and like crying, like like overload of like different emotions that like I was just like tweaking out. Like it was hella weird. And then all of a sudden it felt like I was like an Oblivion like character creation, where it was literally like hacking me and like changing me, but like on like a on like in my like
kind of like
core.
The creative character.
Yeah, it was like creating my character, but it was like fucking with me. And then and during this I was scared shitless. It was terrifying. Like it was really scary. Too. But I sort of had like a realization, and this was like kind of like the turning point in it, where I was like, he's not malicious, he's just like fucking with me. He's like treating me the way like I treat a piece of art, where it's like when I like make a song, like I'll take this part out and I'll like put it over there. You know what I mean? I was like the piece of art in that situation. Like it reminded me of like when I was a kid and my older brother would like he would build all the Lego sets. Like he was the one that would like kind of like read them and like put it together. But then like he was like old enough like that like he didn't give a shit. So I would like take apart his already built Legos and I would like put them back together in really weird and fucked up ways. And that's like what he was doing with me. So it was almost like, I don't know, it was almost like I see it as like that was like a like a version of like myself type of thing. But it's like, you know, kind of like made me almost, it was a weird fucked up way of like realizing that like art is kind of life and life is art, I guess.
It was also around this time that he started to release music. These trips inspired many of his different personas. It was around the time he started experimenting with psychedelics that he heard about the government's Project MKUltra experiment in class. Now, if you don't know what Project MKUltra is, I highly suggest you go and look it up. It's basically the government's attempt at mind control, and much more than that. It's deep, but go look it up. It was from here where he got a stage name. MK says he sees his music as performance art, hence the different characters, Green Guy, Milkman, and Meatman. Although it would be years before Spider Gang would even become a thing, MK and Brahman God started listening to each other around 2015, 2016, and were supposed to drop a collab tape that never ended up getting released.
I was, you know, back in the day, I was supposed to do a project with like Brahman, but it never happened. But that was in like 2016, because we actually listened to each other way back before we even met each other. So it's like, you know, it's like in this web of like, we were kind of like late SoundCloud. I feel like it was like the transition from like what SoundCloud was in that era to kind of like, you know, how it is now, where it's not really as much of a thing anymore, or like, you know what I mean? It's not what it was.
It would be years of experimenting and grinding before MK would make the roughly 45-minute train ride to New York City and start doing shows, eventually performing at the same events as Wendigo, A14, and Christ Dillinger. On August 16, 2018, MK would start to introduce us to his first character, Milkman, on the MKUltra show and the sequel, The Soft Machine, 9 months later. And eventually, MK would make the trip out to Long Beach and meet the rest of Spider Gang. After heading back to the East Coast, MK had to prepare for a show in Brooklyn. That show would happen on February 15, 2020, with most of the other members of Spider Gang. It was after this show that he would officially join the group. A month after getting up with Spider Gang, MK would drop Green Guy, and 4 months later, would introduce us to his new character, Meatman. After Meatman, we would start to see MK work with the other members of Spider Gang on tracks like Super Milkman Party, I'm a Meme, Watching Me, and most recently, at the time of this recording, Meat Machine, produced by Wendigo. MK would also start producing heavily for the other members of Spider Gang, most notably on Little Darky Swamp, helping create 8 of the 22 tracks. MK would go on to form the group The Faggots with Little Darky and Brahman God. Currently, MK is preparing for Spider Gang's East Coast tour and will be touring in Europe with Little Darky shortly after that. Safe to say, it's going to be a busy rest of the year for MK. Story of MKUltra is far from finished. In fact, it's just getting started, and you can bet as more holes in the story are filled, and as it continues to unfold, we're going to have the update. And on behalf of Kult Classic, I'm Bobby Dee, and this has been the Story of MKUltra. Until next time, peace.